If we can't be sure of one thing, we can't be sure of any of it. That's not how the secular textual critics do business. That's Ehrman applying his former mindset.
A black and white,
a
faulty
black and
dilemma.
white, yes.
Yeah, no gray scale.
No grayscale, precisely.
So, tell us a little more about Ehrman's book. What is he saying?
Well, he will point to various problems in the New Testament, which are actually old news in many cases, and use that as a basis for people to say, well, let's be more concerned. I like to compare him to Chicken Little. He presses the button, the panic button, constantly, saying, because of this little problem, we can't be sure of much more. Now, I'll give you just a couple of examples. Mark 16, 9 through 20. Now, you open your average study Bible, and you will often find a note that says, this is not original to Mark. We know Mark did not write this. Correct? You've seen that?
Yes.
He will bring this up in his book as though no one knew it before, as though this is some surprising news. It isn't. We've been well aware of this for a long time. Same thing with the story of the woman caught in adultery, John 8. Most of your study Bibles will have a note about that. Or here's another example of what he'll do. I like this one in particular. In Mark 1:41, Jesus heals a leper. Okay, we're familiar with that story? Okay, and it says one of two things. It either says that he was having compassion on the man, or it says he was angry with the man. Now here's the thing. The evidence indicates that Mark originally wrote angry. I'll explain why shortly. But what Ehrman will say is, well, obviously someone was ashamed of the fact that Jesus was mad at this poor leper, and so they changed it to say compassion. Okay? And he will say there was some theological issue with this, like they were trying to cover up some deficiency in Jesus. Okay? Now, I'll explain why that is not a theological problem at all. Jesus is angry many times in the New Testament. Cleaned out that temple pretty heavy, didn't he? Okay? He's angry at other times in Mark as well, at least a couple of other times. Christians had no shame over Jesus being angry. They didn't see that as a problem. Okay? In this case in particular, Ehrman plays on this sympathy we would naturally have for the leper to say, well, obviously they were covering something up, right? Consider this. Now, what was leprosy in the New Testament period? Probably not Hansen's disease, but it could be even just a small spot on your skin. That word we use for leprosy covered a wide variety of skin diseases. So this guy wasn't necessarily suffering a great deal. In fact, he probably wasn't, because if he came in front of that crowd and wasn't chased off, probably his leprosy wasn't that obvious. Okay? Now, second thing, Jesus is teaching in the synagogue, right? Okay? And this man comes up to him right in the middle of his teaching. What's he just done? We call that putting him on Front Street, don't we? Okay? He has basically challenged Jesus in front of all these people and forced him to do this healing in front of everybody. Because if he doesn't do it, then it's in front of everybody. Looks like a problem, right? Looks like, oh, you can't do it, right? Now, because he did this, he forced Jesus' hand. Jesus had every right to be angry with the man for doing that to him. Okay? Just like to put you on Front Street today, you'd be angry at a man, right? For doing something like that. And then add insult to injury. When Jesus touches that leper, what's everyone else going to think of him? They're going to think he's unclean. And you notice right after that story, Jesus had to get out of Dodge, right? So his ministry was hampered in that town because this guy insisted on healing in front of everybody. It's kind of like if you're preaching and I come up to you and spray orange paint all over you, right? You're not going to be preaching with orange paint all over you. Maybe your youth pastor would, I don't know. But either way, see, Ehrman is wrong in saying that there's no reason for Jesus to be angry, and therefore Christians must have been covering it up.
But as you're pointing out, all the books, the Encyclopedia of Bible Difficulties, When Critics Ask by Norman Geisler, these are not new issues.
No.
There are responses to every one of them. What is this about the critics and even technical scholars who are presenting this stuff as though it's brand new?
There must be some motivation behind it. They're trying to convince others that what they say is true. You know, Ehrman wrote a book for scholars called The Orthodox Corruption of Scripture, in which he says many of the same things in more detail that he says in Misquoting Jesus. Wallace noticed that in many cases he did not report some mitigating facts about his claims in Misquoting Jesus that were reported in Orthodox Corruption of Scripture. So clearly, Ehrman is trying to get over to a popular audience certain points he wants to make that he wouldn't try to get over to scholars in his own
This
field.
brings me to the point of sometimes it's not about what it's about. Sometimes a technical scholar can be brilliant in their technical skills, but if their heart is wrong, if their perception is wrong, depending on their personality temperament, the axe they have to grind, What do you run into when you're dealing with Tecton.org, when you're dealing online with skeptics and critics? Is there a mindset, a skeptical or critical mindset, which stands apart from the scholarly apparatus?
Well, there certainly is. In many cases, what we have are people who think they know more than they do. And they've just read a couple of things off Wikipedia, the abomination that causes misinformation, and they think they've got the whole story, or they are satisfied with what they found on Wikipedia, and so they look no further. They would never pick up a book by Daniel Wallace. They might pick up Ehrman's book because they know it agrees with what they want to hear. But they would never pick up any other book, or they would just briefly look at it and claim it doesn't answer the question. And what you said it's an issue of the heart, okay? I do not, purposely, I will not try and judge someone's heart motives unless they make it very obvious. I will start out by judging what their head produces. I will judge the facts and the arguments they present. And if after a certain time they repeatedly say, well, that doesn't make sense, or they will not answer the argument, or they'll make up some excuse that is not grounded in scholarship, then I think the evidence will speak for itself that there's a heart issue there as well as a head issue, or that the heart issue is the primary one.
James Patrick Holding, he's the author of Shattering the Christ Myth, the author of a brand new book on the reliability of the New Testament documents, the author of Mormon Defenders, the author of The Impossible Faith, and the internet presence on Tecton Apologetics. Which book has your passion right now?
The book on New Testament reliability has right now, because it is the one I'm working on directly. If the schedule goes right, it should be out sometime in March or April of 2009. I just started working on some of the final chapters this past week.
If people want to contact you, they can go to your website?
They can.
How would they get there?
That will be at tektonics.org, tektonics.org.
And there's a lot of information on that site.
Yeah, I have
Bring your coffee.
About 1,500 articles. If you count, like some articles are very short, others are very long, but if you count them all separately, you get about 1,500, I think.
One more quick point. What is the opinion you're held in the skeptical community? Are you do you strike fear into the hearts of men and women?
Maybe. What you'll find is that I'm a dirty, rotten scoundrel. I'm nasty. I eat babies. I kick dogs and boil puppies in boiling water and things like that. Only on weekends do I do that.
Of course.
No.
You're a busy man. Well, I'm so grateful to have you on this program. We're going to be doing more programs together.
Yes.
It's so important that we get this information from the top shelf to the bottom shelf, the hay out of the loft onto the barn floor where the cows can get to it. And I'm so appreciative of your ministry, JP. It's been a great blessing in my life and in the lives of so many people, and especially young people who are our future. They need to be aware of these issues. But going into high school, going into college especially, they need to be able to defend the faith once delivered to the saints, and you're on a cutting edge here. So we appreciate all of your hard work.
The earlier the better. A friend of mine said this just a couple of days ago, you can't just assume because they were baptized at 6 that they're going to be safe. There's a lot more they're going to run into out there.
And even in the Christian community, we're not doing a job, are we, in preparing our young people so often.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much again for being a guest.
Greg.
See you next time on the Veritas Forum.